Okay, let's go. This is the Olina SE, Tripowin X HBB Olina SE. It's obviously a special edition of the Olina. It is the same driver as the original. The position of the driver in the shell has been slightly different. There's a seat for the earphone to sit in, and also the tuning foam inside the nozzle, and also the filter on top. There's about 3 different layers of adjustment compared to the original Olina. Let's go ahead and take a look at the frequency graph real quick. That is the original in yellow. It is not really matching stuff that I typically rec, but as I mentioned in the video for the Olina, this was trying to take a $285 set at that time and offer it for 35% of the price, because that's one of the benefits of Chi-Fi and knowing people and factories and the business. And it turned out to be, sales-wise, a spectacular success. But along the way, there were things run into that were issues that could be fixed, and one of the biggest ones is the tuning, which I would prefer to be a little less intense at 5 and 6K. That's my personal one. That's level 1. I wanted to do that. Level 2, more important than me and my ears, is that people were running into some issues with failures because of condensation. And as I mentioned in the Mele to Olina video, their voices are heard, so I want to talk to them real quick. And actually everybody. This is the Mele. This is the original series starter. This is the shell. It's very, very easy to work with. The Mele is a set that was, I won't get into too much. It's designed for my library. It's not the most technically proficient set, but it does drums, bass guitars, male vocals well. Cymbal strikes are fine. If you want a wide, open, spacious set, it probably isn't this, but it was never claimed to be. Sales were massive. They sold tons of it, surprising everybody, actually. I said, everybody thought, you're being so specific with your library, you're not going to get sales. Mele begs to differ. Mele is important to this story because when Olina came out, the idea was to take a O2 driver and to put it in the Mele shell. It seems simple, right? It's not a lot of retooling at the factory. Try to do that. The problem was that when you take when you just take any driver and you put it in any other shell and try to copy, literally copy a Tianstimo 2, it's going to be a little harder. That is the driver that's on the inside, and it's got a seat. It's milled into this shell, and the driver drops into that. In the original form, putting an O2 driver into the Mele shell did not work. Didn't work. Played with filters, all kinds of stuff. Didn't work, didn't matter. Somebody on the engineering side in China said, we're going to remill slightly, just a slight angle adjustment, the driver seat. So they took the driver out, they milled the bottom of the seat, and they put it at a slight angle, dropped the driver back in, sent another one of the many samples that I get to me. This one is actually opening up. And it still wasn't quite doing it. Next step was to take the nozzle, because that could be a problem, and to do something with it. And what they ended up doing with the Olina to get it to sound like the O2, which was the target. If you're claiming that you're trying to offer something, you gotta, in fact, offer it. And if you look at these two sets side by side, this is not perfectly flat. The nozzle is wider, and it's also at a different angle than on the Mele. And on the inside that you can't see is a slightly different seat, or a chair for the driver to sit in, because all those things were required to get to that tuning. So that is the original Olina. Now the difference between the Olina and the Olina SE is kind of like that. It's got, if you look at the nozzle, let me see if I can get this close. It's got a nozzle that's pretty much the same as the original Olina. The difference is that the driver seating had to be slightly changed. So they opened it up, they remilled inside like they did between the Mele and the original Olina to get this to sound better than this. And by better, I mean less 5 and 6K with extension that goes all the way off the board. There are modifications that you can do online for your Olina that involve part of what is inside this. The foam in the nozzle of this set is more actually for backup, fail-safe, for preventing condensation. So if you're worried about condensation or moisture buildup, the chance that it gets through the filter and also gets through a tuning foam, which is inside the nozzle now. This never had that. It's very unlikely, and if it is, you're probably just not built for metal shells and long listening. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that people that have that issue likely will have it more than once in their life, and there's other people that never have that problem, and they live in humid areas, and they have sets like the Moondrop Aria, or whatever that's called, which has had the same issues, among others, that sell a lot and get a lot of feedback on multiple platforms. If you've ever had that issue, you probably will again. And if you never have, you probably won't. This set right here, the Olina SE, will probably not give you that set. It would be very, very, very surprising if it did, because it's got a different filter. It's got the internal foam inside the nozzle. The driver is at a different angle, really isn't related to that. But I think the process of retuning the original Olina to the Olina SE, which obviously sounds different, and in my ears, to my ears with my library, sounds better. That process of doing that kind of made it highly unlikely that you're going to have any condensation issue with the new Olina SE, because it's a side effect of the tuning process. I think looks-wise, it's quite nice. It's subtle. It's not a big, bright white screaming in your face. It's almost like a beige. It doesn't jump out at you. If someone's close enough to be noticing this, I think they're maybe a little bit too close to you. I'm going to maybe not continue with this too much further, except to say that my library plays back this very well. Let me lift this up for a second. Stuff like Vivaldi, strings, Tchaikovsky, Verdi. It's much easier on the ears with this set than with the original because of the 5-6K slight cut down. But I get all the harmonics because it's got extension that goes all the way off the board. Listening to stuff like Big Boy Kill Jill, the drops on a set that's tuned like this are not heavy because it's not tuned like a heavy set. I got an alarm. I got an ambulance coming. The bass guitar that comes after this is quite nice. It sounds accurate. It's not emphasized. It's where I think it's supposed to be. Masters of Reality by Black Sabbath is a bass guitar and a drummer that are kind of going on at the same time, and there's some masking that can go on. But as this is such a good driver, and like the Olina, it performs well. The ability to perceive the drummer or the bassist or both of them at the same time without one seeming to drown out the other, making just a mess, doesn't really occur with this driver, which is the reason that this was used again. It's a good driver. Lots of people that listen to lots of different libraries who have adjusted the original Olina with filters, with the support of people like Michael Bruce and Short Bus and Unknown Soldier, have gotten this set, the original Olina, to a point where they consider it to be very, very, very good at its price, if not the best, for a while, until the next awesome thing comes along. But there's a lot of people out there that like it, and they don't have a library that's like mine, because the driver is technically proficient. It does its job well. This is taking that to the next and final level, in my opinion. This will be the last time that I work with that driver, because beating a dead horse and all that. Please buy. This is me shilling now. I think this is the best dynamic driver that I've been associated with. I think it's got the highest quality driver. I think it's most matching my personal preference in tuning. Plays back my library very well. Chances of metal shell issues occurring to you because of the way that this was retuned, part of how that was done, is really going to, I think, prevent that. It'd be hard for earwax to get through the filter. Not really. But then to get through a sponge in the nozzle, that would be kind of tough. And if it's that bad, maybe looking for other sets would probably be ideal. So that's the Olina SE. I'll talk about this more in a top 5 video, because I'm going to do that. I'm also going to rank my own collaborations in a separate video, because I'm placing it on a list that's separate from the mass list. So I can, full disclosure, the bias is real. I receive profit from sets when I sell them, but I put my logo and my name on it, and they're going for targets that I'm literally doing myself. So there's bias, but there's multiple types of bias. There's a financial influence bias. There's I like this thing because I was involved in the tuning bias. So there's a lot of stuff going on. I love it. I think it's great. And that's it. I'm going to keep this simple. That's the Olina SE. It is a step So the Mele to Olina required a different nozzle and a remilling of the seat for the driver, and people can check that, and they already have actually. There are people in this hobby that'll rip this stuff open immediately, barely listening to it, which is, I guess, good for everybody. The jump from the Olina to the Olina SE, right here, was really the same thing. It kind of required a slight remilling of the seat. Also, they can claim that it's not an identical thing with just different filters, which I think is part of what they did too. And then the nozzle filter and the other filter are kind of going towards the tuning / preventing people who had prior issues having an issue again, because that would be a really bad thing. So that's the Olina SE. Thanks everybody for the trust up to this point. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. If you have any problems with anything with Linsol, with any of your sets, if you get anything less than satisfactory feedback or treatment, contact me directly. This has got my name on it. I'll get involved with it right away. Okay? And I'm out.